to Blooming Horizons. We're continuing our conversation on New Year's resolutions, yay or nay. Welcome back. Stay tuned and see what we come up with. The simplest thing is always the best, especially if you do feel overwhelmed. Do what you can and go from there. And for me, as I think I've mentioned, I do like to layer on. And I like the vision because vision works, I'm living into it. And then I have some monthly goals. It helps me check in, am I living towards this or putting some systems in place? So like for the writer, when I just mentioned, I may make one of my habits, my daily habits, maybe it's an atomic habit, small, and maybe write for 5 minutes every day. I can do that, right? So I'm probably going to write more than that. And so as I build that writing muscle, I'm living into that and making that vision come to pass just by little small steps. So, and the good thing about daily habits, days come, one after the other, and if you miss, it's fine. And I take that as an opportunity to say to myself, well, you haven't done that. Why? Not like a judgment, but do you not want to do it? Because all these visions and goals, you get to choose them. So if I don't want to do it, I don't have to. I can take it off. But if there's something in the way, or if there's some emotional component I need to consider, like fear or failure or whatever, just gives you a chance to check in. So I think these are all just like ways to intentionally check in with yourself and nourish yourself and bring yourself to the forefront of your own life.
That's good. And, another thing to think when you're vision casting, I don't know if you've heard of that with like your spouse. I think it's really good once a year to get together. Hopefully you can turn it into like a weekend little getaway, and then you get together and you write that list that she was talking about, and then you do that together. That's always so good. You're going to put on there things you want to see financially, things that you want to see for your kiddos. Like maybe y'all set up some goals for your kids, set up goals for your marriage. Like all of those things are really good. We like to get together for this channel and vision cast, right? Like we want to make sure that we're putting out quality work and things for you. So if you are somebody that is a creative and, you want to write that book or you want to start that podcast, I say go for it. But when you're doing that, start with a vision casting, because I think once you start with that big picture and then you start kind of pulling it all together, it kind of gives you an idea of where you're headed and how to get started.
Yeah.
At least.
What other things do we have on the list?
System changes. We talked about that. We talked a little bit about that.
So some people would say habits, but also could be systems. The book Atomic Habit, I think I mentioned this way back on our first series, but just setting small daily habits that work towards your goal and attaching them to things that you already do or times of day, and so it becomes part of your routine. So setting up a system or routines or rituals, because a system, once it becomes rote, the goal becomes the natural fruit of that system. And a system, it's changeable. You can change it.
Adapt.
Yes, adaptable. And so there's room for adaptation and growth. And it becomes a way of being. So a runner, they take on the identity of I am a runner. If you start a system, this is how I live my life. I am an XYZ. This is what I do. And then as you live life as that person, then the fruit of that lifestyle will come.
That's so good. Just this morning, my youngest was like, asked her to do 3 things: feed the dog, water the dog. We have a geriatric dog. Put the diaper on the dog. And she was like, but I'll do the first 2, but the last one's not my job. That's not my chore. And I was like, ma'am, we don't have chores. We are just all trying to move the house forward together. And this is like really ringing true that like, no, this is this morning system. This is the morning routine. Like these are just the things that collectively need to happen before we can walk out the door in the morning. And I think that's so good, because I think kids especially get trapped in that that's not my job, which is like if you want to see my head explode, is be one of my children and tell me that's not my job. Ma'am, none of this is my job, but here we are. So, but I love this idea. Like this, I wrote it down. Like I'm taking this away from this conversation too. Is this idea of that it's a system. It's like a cog in a machine. It's the next step in the assembly line that moves us out the door. It's so good. I love that.
Yeah, and be mindful of the cycle of change. I think I've talked about that, and I think I am just now really like understanding the cycle of change. When you are trying to change something or create something, it never is going to be ideal. Like what in life is just ideal? Like it just goes, there it is, and now I'm a runner. Like it's that's just not how it works. So it rains for a week. Okay, so then you gotten out of the habit of not running, and then now that day comes and it's a beautiful day and you don't go running because you got out of the habit of running. So things are like that are going to happen, and then the question is, in that cycle of change, what are you going to do? Are you going to be like, well, that's it, I didn't go. It didn't, obviously it was out of your control that it rained for a week. But then here we are and you didn't go for the past 3 days. Are you going to say, well, that's it, I'm a failure? Or are you going to go, okay, I didn't go the last 3 days, but today's the day and I'm going to go. And maybe you make it a micro goal. Well, now I'm just going to walk the cul-de-sac. It's more than nothing. And in the cycle of change, it doesn't happen overnight. They're all micros until it becomes this thing where you just are like, oh, I'm just doing that.
Well, and didn't we say that also changing that mindset that when you stop, nothing has clicked backwards?
Correct.
You're just picking up where you
just
stopped.
picked it back up.
It's like stopping a crochet project. You don't sit there and be like, oh, I haven't done this for 3 weeks and completely rip all the stitches out.
Right.
You just pick back up where you were, and it might take you a minute to get back into that rhythm or remember the pattern. Like it might not just be instant, but it doesn't negate the work that already came before when you took a break or stopped or life got in the way.
Yes, and I think I'm sure there are people like me. I like to succeed. I like it. Like I like to feel like, and I did it all. Look at me. And I get that. So that idea of failure can feel so paralyzing. So you don't even want to say the goal out loud. You don't even want to think it. You don't want to write it down. You don't want to tell anybody because once it's out there now. So now people will know you failed at it. That's okay. You don't have to tell anybody. You can just write it down for yourself. But not even trying is the failure, right? So we've got to at least, you can just write it down for yourself, and it doesn't have to be January 1st, okay? It can be whatever day you decide. But having that goal you can just tell yourself and then start working on that and know it is a journey, and be okay with the failures on the way because you're not falling backwards. You're failing forward. It's not, it's always, you're always going this way.
We learn more from failure than we success.
Absolutely.
And a really good way to kind of alleviate any fear of failure is to work that into your habit. Make it a habit to fail at something every day. I've added to my my habit list to say no to myself for something I want to do every day, and to say yes to something I do not want to do every day, because it builds self-discipline, but it also helps me learn to live outside of myself to others. But also, if you make it your goal to fail at something every day, then you're gonna make that goal if you try something new. And if you make that goal, it means that you tried something new. Trying something new means that you are growing and changing.
So funny. I was just having this conversation with my husband yesterday, and we were talking about it because we're in the process of like trying to decide we'd like to start our own business or figure out something, a little side hustle to, just for us to move us forward. But then we're like, oh, we don't know what we want to do. And there's so many possibilities. And finally I was like, we just need to figure out what our first failure is.
It's absolutely
instead of picking the thing that is going to be like, this is it. You know what I mean? I said, no, let's just figure out what our first failed business is.
Yeah.
Let's just pick that. And then that just changes the way that feels.
It
The
does.
weight
The weight of it. That's the way it feels in your spirit. Like, well, let's just look, we're going to do this and we're going to fail at it.
Yeah.
And that's the goal, because we know we're going to learn a lot if we pick something and it's a failure. We're going to learn from that. So what are we going to fail at first?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's, I feel like we
you
need
know-
a t-shirt now. Like, what
I
are you
fail very
failing
well.
at today? I fail well.
I fell well.
I like that. I excel at failing.
But also, you know, I feel like something that Lil Marie actually had told me, she was like, you know what though? I just say we start making those phone calls. You just make the phone calls and just, you know, you're going for 20 no's today.
Yeah.
And I think, so then when you get a yes, you're like, oh my God, they said yes.
You're just not expect the worst and rejoice in the best.
Yes, and I think especially in this world, I feel like when you hear about, I don't know, Steve Jobs or whomever, and then you hear their stories and they're like, oh, no. Like I asked, 20 banks and they all said no. The 21st said yes. Like if you don't ask, you cannot receive. If you don't try, then you'll never know.
Yeah.
And I think we all, a lot of times, are just so stagnant. And it feels almost, in being complacent, feels safe. But man, I feel now more than ever, once you go and you step outside of that box, you are ready to step out again. And you're like, I can do that again.
Each time gets a little easier.
Yeah, it gets a little easier and it doesn't feel as uncomfortable because you start not taking those things personally.
Yeah.
It's not personal.
Good.
So yeah.
That is good. I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
It's good stuff, ladies.
I love it.
Okay. So just to end it off a little, if all of this still is feeling a little bit overwhelming, a quick little manifestation sort of practice that you could do. Now, it generally circles around like the end of the year. So maybe like starting on Christmas Day and the 12 days of Christmas, right? Like the song. You could start it on the winter solstice. You could start it on Yule, which usually starts around that same time. You could just pick any kind of random day. It doesn't matter. But you take 12 days and you write down you write down 13 things that you want for yourself, 13 visions you have for yourself. You write them on little strips of paper and you fold them up and you put them in a jar or something. Then for the next 12 days, you're going to take out one of those wishes and you're going to burn it. Like just put it in a little jar, let it go into the world, out into the universe. And then the 13th day, you're going to keep that one. And that is the one that you are working on. So you've released 12 wishes out into the energy of the universe. And this one is for you to work on. So even if that makes you feel like, I can do one thing, right? Like if you make this list of 13 things, like even if you do the, I want to see, I want to touch, right? And then you keep that one. Now, like this year I am responsible for making sure that I start a garden, whatever. And then that's the thing you're working on. But those other things, even though you aren't physically holding in your hand, they're still in your mind. You wrote those down. You still know what you're working for. So it still gives you the opportunity to create vision. And then if it feels better, to release it into like wishing on a star, like letting it go out and then keeping on to that one thing and say, well, I'll do this, be prayerful about those other things and let them go. That's just like maybe one extra sort of new approach to
I like it.
to searching out the things that your heart might be longing for. So, well, guys, I think it's been a great topic. I mean, I have written down notes. I took stuff away. I think sometimes you guys are like, oh my gosh, they have so much like knowledge, but you need to know that we sit down and then people will say something. I'm like, oh man, that's really good. I'm gonna write that down. Yes. I wrote down bees, faith, hope, hard work, and then I put creation because they make honey. Right?
Oh,
Right. See, this is a give and take situation all the way around the table. So you're here at the table. Drop some comments. Let us know. We want to hear back from you guys. What are some things? Are you for resolutions? Have they worked for you? Have they not? Is there something else that we've never even heard of that has been super helpful for you guys? So let us know. Chat us back, and we can't wait to see you guys at the table next time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Bye.
Blooming